Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here today. They told me that this was that we were sold out for this conference. I said, yeah, I know. Every one of those people is sold out for the cause of freedom. I want you to know that you all give me hope. Not by being here today, although I'm very glad that you are here today, and not just by the fruit of the work that you do each and every day. No, the thing that gives me hope is your tenacity, your resilience, the fact that in a tough, emotionally draining mission, you get up day after day and get right back at it. That you push back against the counsels of despair, the disappointments that inevitably attend the work that you do. That's what gives me hope. Your heart, the fact that you keep coming back. I want you to know that I'm proud of you. It's amazing to me that this is our 5th Human Trafficking Summit. I remember when we started doing these, a lot of people that I talked to about human trafficking were like, well, is that really a thing? Or, you know, how big a deal is that? And I often felt like I was standing at the edge of a canyon out in the wilderness, shouting at the top of my lungs and listening to a faint echo coming back. I think many of you who have been in the fight even longer than I have feel that way, have felt that way, that not many people understand what actually goes on in the shadows, have felt like, am I the only one? But folks, look around you. There is strength in numbers, and you are not alone. And that means our survivors and our future survivors also are not alone. There are wonderful successes that have occurred over the last 5 years, and I really like celebrating successes. I want to talk to you about some of you rather than talk about my office. I could spend the whole morning talking about the big good that people are doing, so if I don't happen to touch on your work during this little 5-on-5. Please don't take that for any reason other than I want to make sure we get to the programming today. The first champion I'd like to mention, though, is the Cleveland Clinic Forensic Medical Unit, mobile unit. This is a team that delivers trauma-skilled care to trafficking survivors at the time they're recovered. In late 2023, the clinic had the idea to put this together. It's the first of its kind in Ohio. It includes a bunch of interdisciplinary skills, including an ER physician, a forensic nurse, and a paramedic to immediately address survivors' physical, medical, and psychological needs. It was developed in conjunction with the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office and the Northeast Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force. The work of Michelle Reilly-Sorrell, Tom Beers, Sherry Stevens, and Dr. Sami Thodahill, all working in various capacities at the world-renowned Cleveland Clinic, allows us to bring traditional health care into a non-traditional setting. I'd also like to thank this group for the support of a training video that we put together in conjunction with my office and the Human Trafficking Commission. Please join me in recognizing the clinic's mobile forensic medical unit. I mean, come on, isn't that cool? I love it. Now, studies show that housing is one of the biggest hurdles that survivors face once they've decided, particularly, to leave the life. They've got all kinds of barriers that I don't need to tell you about because you work to overcome those barriers every day. But Celia Kendall and Beacon 360 Management came up with the idea for Harriet's Hope, a service-enriched housing community for trafficking survivors. In late 23, Harriet's Hope, and I hope you all get the name, it's paying tribute to the great anti-slavery crusader, Harriet Tubman, opened its first-of-a-kind facility here in Columbus. 52-unit, multifamily, residential, affordable housing with support services that are tailored particularly to their residents that have experienced chronic homelessness or human trafficking. Along with Celia, join me in recognizing Makisha West-Pulley of Albus House, Michelle Hanan of the Salvation Army in Central Ohio, and Stephanie Rollins of Harriet's Hope. Stephanie, you've come a long way since I met you, babe. A long way. Proving again that there is strength in numbers and power in network, partners with Harriet's Hope include nonprofits like Albus, but they also include Freedom a la carte, Kaleidoscope Youth Center, Columbus Works, Fit to Navigate, and Integrated Services for Behavioral Health. Thank you to all those champions. You know, when most people think of human trafficking, if they think about it at all, and we still, how many know we still have a long way to go to raise awareness? But they tend to assume that it's a big city problem. We know that human trafficking is everywhere. And frequently, in more rural communities, it's more difficult to raise the resources, more difficult to raise awareness, more difficult to get people to focus on the issue. I'd like to recognize today something in one of our more rural counties, Tuscarawas County. It took me about a year in statewide office to learn how to say that. Tuscarawas. There's a reason they call it Tusk, but the coalition is called simply Tusk Against Trafficking, and it's led by Melanie Anderson and Molly McMath. Fighting human trafficking is complicated, of course, in rural areas by the geographic location. Frequently, you don't have any public transit. There's long spaces between things. Service providers are not immediately available. And of course, shame is still a thing throughout our society, but perhaps in some of our smaller, more close-knit communities, it's even more difficult to be able to leave the life. It's an ever-expanding coalition, Tusk Against Trafficking. It includes most of the divisions of the county government, including juvenile court, the health department, even the public library, and the Board of Developmental Disabilities. Other partners include Union Hospital, the FBI, the Philadelphia Police Department, the Ohio State Highway Patrol, Erksville Police Department, and Big Brothers and Sisters. That's what I call strength in numbers. And networking builds strength in numbers. Let's give it up for Tusk Against Trafficking. Huh? Now, last year, I sat down looking ahead at the next 2 years with Linda and Mary Kate, talk about what is our plan, what's our vision. And there's a lot of cool stuff coming down the road, But one of the things that I made it clear that I wanted to work on, and we've got some active stuff that we're working on here, but is labor trafficking. In the last couple of years, human trafficking for sex has begun to finally start to resonate with the general public, but we hear almost nothing about labor trafficking, and yet it's just as pernicious to the human spirit. It's every bit as much of an evil. It's every bit as much wrong. The next champion I'd like to mention is a group, a family that I think many of you have already met, the D'Souza family. Harold and his wife Dancy and their sons Bradley and Rohan are all survivors of labor trafficking. They came to this country from India 22 years ago. The person that they had trusted to help them navigate to their new life here in America had other designs than a new life in America. They were forced to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 years. They lived in an unfurnished apartment, slept on the floor, and anytime they tried to raise the question of their life, their freedom, they were told, they were threatened that they would be turned into the authorities, have them deported. They finally escaped after 2 years and began a new life. After this experience, Harold and Dancy co-founded the non-for-profit Eyes Open International in 2017 in partnership with End Slavery Cincinnati. They have been working ever since to boost public awareness of labor trafficking, and they are working to educate those who might be vulnerable so that they do not become, in turn, victims. Thank you to the D'Souzas for their commitment to ending labor trafficking. Friend, let's give them up a round of applause for their courage. Our fifth and final champion for 5 at 5 years is the new initiative of the Firelands campus of the Bowling Green State University. And I want to take a moment here. We hear a lot about the Ohio State University. I am a proud graduate in Buckeye, and for good reason. It's our flagship university. But up in Northwest Ohio, we have a shining gem of a university with a big heart and a big brain. And I want to thank the folks at BGSU for their support in so many things. That's where our Center for the Future of Forensic Science is located. We also have our criminal justice research is run out of BGSU. They cooperate with our office on multiple projects across the board, and I'm excited about this one coming out of the Firelands campus. Led by Laura Wilkin and Tracy McGinley, this effort focuses on labor trafficking. It seeks to better gather and organize data to be able to identify victims and the services available to them. And of course, they help to establish best practices. The more we know, the more we can fight the evil in the world. But especially when I came into this fight, one of the things that I found out is we've got no good data. We've got little information. It's anecdotal across the board. One of the things our office is working on, and one of the things that they're working on at BGSU Firelands, is helping to better quantify this so that we can measure not only how far we've come, but how far we have yet to go. And we know what resources are going to be necessary to get there. So please join me for recognizing their fine work, and I'm looking forward to big things coming out of that work in the future. Now, I want to mention something very briefly that you'll hear about in the coming months. I almost didn't want to bring this up because I always tell my staff, do not sell the sizzle before you got the steak. And this is a little bit of sizzle before the steak, but the steak is on its way. I've confirmed that the FedEx shipment is going to get here. So I want to let you know that we have an Ohio-specific hotline that will be coming online later this year, 844-OHHT. Yeah. I think a lot of you know that there's been some resistance to it. We've also had some problems with relying only on the national hotline. This Ohio-specific initiative is going to empower all of you and connect us together more quickly with better information. I'm really excited to see this come together. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention something that many of you in this room were part of. And we talked a minute ago about housing, but it's more than housing. It's housing, it's employment, it's getting your kids, custody of your kids, all kinds of issues that come from the collateral issues of a criminal record. As if the trauma and the history and the lack of a work history and the lack of any wealth or possessions that are so frequently the hallmarks of a survivor's life, as if that weren't enough to have to overcome, society has put a rap sheet in the way of the highway to hope. It's like stop strips thrown out into the highway to give you flat tires just once you get going. Well, employment, housing, education are things that have been harder for our survivors to actually access. And I can't think of anyone who needs those things more. We all need them, of course, but a survivor has special barriers. Well, through the work of my office, as well as many of you here, and a special shout out to Stephanie Kunze. Senator Kunze has been a partner in our fight against human trafficking every step of the way. Senate Bill 214 was passed and signed by Governor DeWine. Representative Tracy Richardson, Representative Josh Williams were also fighting with us shoulder to shoulder. And that is going to make a big difference. I hope that all of you will help in publicizing the availability of this vastly expanded expungement, because at the end of the day, really leaving the life means leaving the record, just as much as it means leaving the ink that the trafficker put on your body. I'm excited to see and hear the stories, and I hope that you, as you come across women and men who have been able to use this new statute to get a clean start, to get a clean break from their traffickers and their history, I hope you'll let us know at the Attorney General's office. I want to hear those stories. You can talk about numbers and statistics until people go to sleep, but the power of one story will change a heart. Talk to us and let us know. A sold-out crowd for freedom. There's strength in numbers. There's strength in our numbers. In closing, I want you to all know not just how proud I am, but how concerned I am. Every one of you is carrying a difficult knowledge, the burden of having seen things that almost all Americans don't ever see. and would prefer not to even acknowledge that it exists. It's a heavy burden. It can burn you out. It can discourage you. The fact that there's strength in numbers is a thing to celebrate, but it's also a cautionary tale. My hope is that we don't lose anybody out of the fight in this room. That means you not only have to take care of yourselves, but you've got to look out for each other. You've got to have each other's back. Don't take fine as an answer to the question of how are you. I want to give you a very quick thing that I've been doing for the last year that produces a better and less automatic response than, how you doing? Ask, how is it going with you? It's the same meaning, but I find that people stop for a second because they're not used to hearing it like that. They're not hearing the emphasis on you or how is it going. Because, see, when you say, how are you, there's an implied judgment right there. If you say, yeah, I'm really not doing very good, you're inviting somebody else's pity, perhaps their judgment, perhaps turning away because everybody's already got enough of their own burdens. When you ask the question, how is it going with you? It leaves room that there's not something wrong with you, but there are things that are going that are weighing you down. At any rate, we are all strong. We're as strong as the person who's standing next to us. So let's make sure that we continue to stand next to each other. I can't wait to talk to you again for the 6th Human Trafficking Summit.